My family sold my only house behind my back to pay off my sister's reckless debt, thinking I'd stay quiet. But they were shocked when the buyers were turned away. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment below telling us where you're listening from. We'd love to give you a shout out in our next video. I had always been the one to shoulder the burden of responsibility in my family, even when it felt like the weight of the world was on my back. I bought the house with my hard-earned savings, a small but comfortable place in the heart of Chicago. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine. The memories I had built there, the late-night talks by the fireplace, the quiet mornings with a cup of coffee, it all made the house feel like more than just bricks and wood. My parents had always said that family comes first, but I never thought that would mean my own dreams came last. My sister, Lena, was the golden child, always chasing new ideas and always falling short, leaving a trail of unpaid debts in her wake. I had helped her more times than I could count, each time hoping it would be the last. But this time, it felt different. This time, the betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. When I walked into my house that evening, something felt off. My usually quiet neighborhood seemed unchanged, but there was a heaviness in the air that clung to my shoulders. My mother sat on the couch, wringing her hands, while my father paced back and forth, his eyes darting away from mine whenever I looked at him. Lena was nowhere to be seen, but her presence loomed over the room like a shadow. I dropped my keys into the bowl by the door and asked what was going on. They told me, with voices that trembled and eyes that refused to meet mine, that they had sold my house. Just like that. Gone. My sanctuary, my one piece of security in a world that seemed to be constantly shifting under my feet, taken from me without a second thought. They said it was to pay off Lena's debts. They said it was for the good of the family. But all I heard was that my hard work, my sacrifice, meant nothing to them. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. My father tried to explain, his words tumbling over each other like dominoes falling, but I couldn't hear him. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears, a dull roar that drowned out everything else. My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away, my mind racing. I couldn't believe they had done this to me, not without even talking to me first. My father said the house had already been signed over, the papers filed, the sale complete. My mother said it was for Lena, that she was drowning, and they couldn't stand by and watch. But what about me? Who would stand by me? Who would watch out for the dreams I had built within these walls? I walked out of the room, my chest tight with a fury I had never felt before. My hand shook as I clutched the banister, my mind already racing through the possibilities. I knew they thought I would understand. They thought I would be the good son, the one who always said yes, the one who always put family first. But they didn't know me as well as they thought they did. I had learned, over the years, that sometimes family can be the first to turn on you. And I had learned how to protect myself, even from them. As I stood in the kitchen, staring at the place where I had once cooked meals with laughter and love, I realized I had one advantage they didn't know about. I had already transferred ownership of the house into a trust months ago, a move I had made quietly, without telling anyone. On paper, the house wasn't even mine anymore. It belonged to me, but in a way that couldn't be touched by anyone else's decisions. They thought they had sold it. They thought they had taken everything from me. But the truth was, they had sold nothing more than a dream they had built in their minds. The real house, the real security, was still mine. And when the creditors came knocking for the money they thought was owed, they would find themselves holding empty promises and worthless paper. My family had made their choice. Now, it was my turn to make mine. The next morning, I woke up in a haze of anger and disbelief. The sun was streaming through the curtains, but it felt like a cold, harsh light that exposed the cracks in everything I thought I knew. I didn't sleep much. My mind had been racing all night, going over every conversation, every moment that led up to this betrayal. My parents had called it a family decision, but I knew it was anything but. They had decided without me, and in that decision, they had told me exactly where I stood in their lives, somewhere below Lena and her never-ending mistakes. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold, staring at the swirling patterns in the mug. My phone buzzed on the table, but I ignored it. I knew it was them, trying to explain, trying to make me see it their way. But I didn't want to hear it. The weight of what they'd done pressed down on me, but beneath that weight was something else, an iron resolve that had been forged in all the years I'd spent picking up the pieces of Lena's disasters. I wouldn't let them take this from me. Not this time. I checked the trust documents again, flipping through the pages that I had signed with a lawyer months ago. It had been a precaution, a quiet insurance policy against exactly this kind of situation. I had seen how my family operated, how they could be quick to sacrifice one person for the sake of another. I had known, deep down, that if push came to shove, they would always choose Lena over me. And so I had protected myself in the only way I could, by making sure the house wasn't something they could just take away. The trust was ironclad. Legally, the house was no longer in my name, but in the name of a trust that only I could control. It was a layer of protection they hadn't even considered, because they had never imagined I would take steps to protect myself from my own family. As I sipped my coffee, I thought about what would happen next. The buyers who thought they had purchased the house would soon learn the sale was invalid. The creditors who thought they were getting paid would be left with nothing but empty promises. My family would be forced to face the fact that they had gambled with something that wasn't theirs to gamble with. And me? I would finally have the chance to stand up for myself in a way I never had before. Around noon, I decided to go see Lena. She was staying at a friend's place across town, someone who always had a couch ready for her when her world fell apart. When I arrived, she was sitting on the porch, a cigarette in hand and a cloud of smoke curling around her head like a crown. She looked up at me with tired eyes, but there was no guilt in them, just the same tired defiance I had seen in her since we were kids. "I heard," she said, flicking ash onto the ground. "Mom and Dad told me you're pissed." I didn't respond right away. I looked at her, really looked at her, and wondered how we had ended up here. Lena had always been the one who pushed the boundaries, who tested the limits of what our family would do for her. She was the kind of person who could charm a room and leave it in ruins, and somehow, people would still line up to help her pick up the pieces. But I wasn't going to be one of those people anymore. "You didn't think to ask me before they did it?" I asked finally, my voice low and steady. She shrugged, taking another drag of her cigarette. "I thought you'd understand," she said. "It's not like you're ever in debt. You're always so careful. You always have a plan. I thought you'd be okay." I laughed then, a hollow sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. "You thought I'd be okay? They sold my house, Lena. My only house. And you didn't even think to call me first." She didn't say anything, and I could see the cracks in her composure, the way her lips tightened and her eyes flickered away from mine. "Well," she said finally, "it's done now. What's the point in arguing about it?" I looked at her for a long moment, and in that silence, I realized something that had been true all along. Lena wasn't going to change. My parents weren't going to change. But I could change. I could decide, for once, that I was done letting them walk over me. "I'm not here to argue," I said quietly. "I'm here to tell you that it's not done. The house wasn't theirs to sell, and you're going to see exactly what that means very soon." She watched me, her cigarette burning down to the filter, but she didn't say another word. I turned and walked away, feeling the weight of everything I had lost and everything I was about to reclaim. The trust documents in my back pocket felt like a shield, a promise that this time, I wasn't the one who was going to be left with nothing. I left Lena's friend's house with my shoulders squared and my mind clear. It was as if the cold air outside had stripped away the fog of betrayal and left only the solid truth. I had protected myself. My family had gambled my future for Lena's mistakes, but they were about to find out just how empty their gamble really was. As I drove back to my small office in the city, I thought about the trust, the ironclad protection I had put in place months ago. The lawyer I had worked with, Mr. Whitaker, had been thorough. He had explained every clause and every contingency. I remembered how he had looked at me with a knowing glint in his eyes, as if he understood why a man would need to guard his own family from himself. It's a safety net, he had said. For you, and only you. When I reached my office, I pulled out the documents again, feeling the weight of them in my hands. Every signature, every notarized page was a testament to the fact that I wasn't going to be a pawn in anyone else's game. My phone rang again this time, my father's number flashing on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to hear another apology or explanation. I knew what I had to do. I called Mr. Whitaker's office, and within an hour, he was on the line with me, calm and confident. They didn't have the right to sell it, he confirmed. The trust holds the property. The sale was fraudulent, and the buyers can't claim ownership. I'll handle the notifications to the buyers and the creditors. Hearing those words made something inside me settle, like a storm that had finally passed. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't a victim. I had been smart, and now I was going to make sure everyone else knew it. I drove out to the house that afternoon, wanting to see it for myself. As I pulled up, I saw a moving van parked in the driveway and two strangers talking on the front porch. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. I got out of the car and walked up to them, my steps measured and steady. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice even. The man looked up, a puzzled frown on his face. "We bought this house," he said. "We're moving in today." I nodded slowly, taking in the boxes stacked behind them, the hopeful look in their eyes. I felt a twinge of guilt for them, caught up in my family's mess. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, "but this house isn't theirs to sell. It's held in trust, and the sale was invalid. You're going to get your money back, but you can't move in here." The woman's face crumpled in confusion. "But we signed papers. We paid." I shook my head, feeling a strange mix of sorrow and resolve. "I understand, but the trust overrides any sale they tried to make. My lawyer will be in touch with yours. You'll be refunded, but this house stays with me." They looked at each other, clearly unsure of what to say, and I turned away, my eyes scanning the familiar lines of the house I had worked so hard for. The way the sun hit the front window, the small garden I had planted with my own hands, this was mine. And no one, not even my own family, could take it away. I went inside and walked from room to room, running my fingers over the door frames and the walls. It felt like I was reclaiming something more than just bricks and mortar. I was reclaiming my sense of self, the part of me that had always been too quick to sacrifice for the sake of others. As I stood in the living room, I heard my phone buzz again. This time, I answered. My mother's voice was shaking on the other end. "Please," she said, "you have to understand." Lena was desperate. We didn't know what else to do. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar ache in my chest. "I understand that you wanted to help her," I said, "but you didn't have the right to sell something that wasn't yours to sell. You didn't even ask me. That's what I can't forgive." There was silence on the line, and then she said softly, "We thought you'd forgive us. You always do." I opened my eyes, staring out the window at the small patch of garden I had tended so carefully. "Not this time," I said. "I'm done being the one who always forgives." I hung up, the finality of it settling over me like a calm tide. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more calls, more apologies, more attempts to guilt me into giving in. But I was done. The house was mine, and I was done letting them tear apart the life I had built. That evening, I sat on the porch of my reclaimed house, a cup of coffee in hand, and the weight of everything that had happened pressing on my shoulders. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, but I barely noticed. My mind was busy replaying every conversation, every betrayal, and every moment I had spent being the one who always forgave. The phone calls from my parents had slowed to a trickle, each message more desperate than the last. My father's gruff voice trying to reason with me, my mother's quiet sobs, Lena's defiant silence, it all felt like noise in the background of a life I had finally decided was worth fighting for. I thought about the years I had spent trying to be the glue that held the family together. Every time Lena got into trouble, I had been there to clean up the mess. Every time my parents looked at me with those pleading eyes, I had given in. I had always believed that family meant sacrifice, But now I saw that what they called family was really just them expecting me to be the safety net for every mistake. And when I finally decided to put myself first, they acted like I was the one who had betrayed them. The irony of it was almost laughable if it didn't hurt so much. As I watched the last light of day fade, I made a decision. I wasn't going to hide in the shadows of my own life anymore. I was going to stand up and tell them exactly how I felt, to let them see the person I had become, someone who wouldn't be walked over, someone who wouldn't be manipulated by their guilt. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to the family group chat, my fingers steady even as my heart pounded. "I know what you did," I wrote. "The house isn't yours to sell. The trust protects it and me. I won't be your scapegoat anymore. Don't call me. Don't come here. I need time to decide if I even want you in my life anymore." I hit send and watched the screen go blank, the finality of it echoing in the silence of the night. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. I was done pretending that everything was fine. I was done pretending that I could keep giving and giving until there was nothing left of me. As I leaned back in the chair and let the cool night air wash over me, I thought about what it would mean to move forward. Not as the son who always said yes, not as the brother who always picked up the pieces, but as a man who knew his own worth. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a run through the neighborhood. The familiar streets looked different in the early light, almost like they belonged to someone else. But I knew that was just the fear talking, the old habits of doubt trying to creep back in. I pushed myself harder, each step pounding out the anger and the hurt that still lingered in my chest. When I got back to the house, I felt lighter, like I had left something behind on those empty streets. I spent the rest of the day packing up the last reminders of my family's hold over me. Old photographs that told stories I no longer believed in, gifts from birthdays and holidays that had always come with strings attached. I boxed them up and stored them in the attic. They were pieces of a past that I was finally ready to let go of. I knew it wouldn't be the end of the story. My parents would keep calling. Lena would find a way to reach out. But I also knew that I didn't have to answer. I didn't have to keep being the one who carried everyone else's weight. That night, I stood in the doorway of the house, looking out at the quiet street. My house, my rules, my life. I whispered a promise to myself, one that felt like a seed planted deep in the soil of my soul. I will never let anyone take this from me again. And as I closed the door behind me, I felt a calm strength settle in my chest, a quiet certainty that no matter what came next, I was finally in control of my own story. Days turned into a week, and the calls from my parents finally stopped. Their silence was almost louder than the arguments that had filled the air before, but I welcomed it. It gave me room to breathe, to think about what I wanted for the first time in my life without the constant noise of their expectations. I poured myself into work, focusing on the projects I had been neglecting while dealing with their betrayal. My job had always been an anchor for me, a place where my efforts were measured by results and not by some invisible ledger of family obligation. As I sat in my office, I felt the weight of what I had built for myself, an identity separate from them, a life that was truly mine. One afternoon, Mr. Whitaker called to confirm that the buyers had been refunded and the sale had been formally annulled. "It's all settled," he said in his calm, reassuring tone. "They can't touch the house. You're in the clear." I thanked him, a genuine smile breaking across my face for the first time in what felt like weeks. It was done. The storm had passed, and I had come out on the other side with my house, my dignity, and my freedom intact. But even as I savored that victory, I knew there was still unfinished business. I needed closure, not just for the house, but for everything my family had put me through. I decided to meet with them one last time, to look them in the eyes and tell them what I had always been too afraid to say. I arranged a meeting at a quiet cafe in the city, a neutral ground where the weight of our history wouldn't be so heavy. When I arrived, they were already there, sitting at a corner table, their faces drawn and tired. My father looked up first, his eyes wary. My mother reached out to me as I approached, but I didn't take her hand. I sat down across from them, my back straight and my heart steady. I'm not here to fight, I said quietly. I'm here to tell you that I'm done. My father's brows furrowed. Done? He echoed, as if he didn't understand. I nodded. Done being the one you take from every time Lena messes up. Done being the one who always says yes, who always forgives. You sold my house. You didn't even ask me. And that's all I need to know about how you see me. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't let them sway me. I had spent too many years letting those tears pull me back into the cycle of giving and giving until there was nothing left. We thought it was the only way, she said, her voice trembling. We didn't want to lose her. I took a deep breath, the calm inside me like steel. But you were willing to lose me, I said. And that's a choice I won't let you make again. My father leaned back in his chair, his shoulders slumping. What do you want from us? He asked finally. I looked at them both, my parents who had raised me and who had hurt me in ways they didn't even seem to understand. I don't want anything, I said. I want you to know that I'm done playing the role you've given me. I'm done cleaning up Lena's messes. I'm done letting you decide what I owe you. From now on, I decide what I give and to whom. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The silence was heavy, but it felt like a relief, like a final breath before the end of a long, drowning struggle. My mother wiped her eyes, and my father looked away, his jaw tight. I stood up, feeling the weight of that moment settle into something solid in my chest. I wish you well, I said quietly. But I'm done. I turned and walked out of the cafe, the cold air outside a sharp contrast to the warmth inside. But it felt clean, like the first real breath I had taken in years. As I walked away, I knew this wasn't the end of my story. My family would still be there, still making choices I couldn't control. But for the first time, I didn't feel responsible for those choices. I didn't feel like I owed them my life. The house was safe, my future was my own, and the path ahead was mine to walk, free of the chains of their expectations. The next morning, I woke up to the soft light streaming through my window, the quiet hum of the city in the distance. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the weight of anyone else's expectations pressing down on me. The house felt different too, less like a battleground and more like a sanctuary. I walked from room to room, taking in the familiar details, the worn oak floors, the paint I'd chosen for the walls, the small repairs I'd done with my own two hands. Every inch of it was a testament to the life I'd built on my own terms. I spent the day working in the garden, feeling the sun warm my shoulders and the earth cool beneath my fingers. It was a simple task, pulling weeds and turning the soil, but it grounded me in a way nothing else could. Each pull of a stubborn root felt like I was clearing away the last remnants of the past, making space for something new to grow. I thought about my parents, about Lena, about all the ways I had let their needs define mine for so long. I realized that what I felt wasn't anger anymore. It was something stronger, something quieter, peace. Later that afternoon, I sat on the back porch, a cup of tea in hand, and the garden stretching out in front of me. My phone buzzed with a new message from Lena, but I didn't open it right away. Instead, I let the silence wash over me, a gentle reminder that I didn't have to respond to every cry for help, that it was okay to choose my own happiness over someone else's chaos. I sipped my tea and thought about the future, about what I wanted to build in this house that was truly mine. A home filled with laughter, but only the kind I welcomed. A place where no one's mistakes could tear down what I had built. As the sun dipped low in the sky, I finally opened the message. It was short, just a few words. I'm sorry. Please talk to me. I read it twice, feeling the old ache in my chest, but I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I knew now that forgiveness didn't mean giving someone another chance to hurt you. It meant letting go of the hold their betrayal had over your heart. And I was ready to let go. I watched the stars come out that night, a slow, steady bloom of light in the darkness. Each one felt like a promise, a quiet reassurance that the future was wide open, that I didn't have to live by anyone's rules but my own. I thought about how far I had come, about the trust one had put in place to protect myself, and I realized that it wasn't just about the house. It was about me. about claiming the right to decide who I was and what I deserved. When I finally went inside, I locked the door behind me and stood for a moment, letting the quiet fill the space. My home, my rules, my life. I knew there would be challenges ahead, that the old wounds wouldn't heal overnight. But I also knew that I was stronger than I had ever been, and that this house, this sanctuary, would always be a reminder of that strength. As I turned off the lights and headed upstairs, I felt a calm settle in my chest. I was done being the one who always gave and never took. I was done being the safety net for everyone else's mistakes. I was done letting anyone but me decide what I deserved. And in that quiet moment, I knew one thing for certain: I was finally home. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to our channel for more tales of resilience and quiet strength. Your support means the world, and every like, comment, and share helps us bring more stories to life. Thank you for listening.